So this topic for this time is Hari gets very creative with every subsequent panel discussion. So Hari is the one who gave us the topic. So the topic this time is time to bell the cat, right? So it can go in different ways. Of kind of thought of what something we can think of. The equivalent other panel discussion is actually elephant in the room. So not very unrelated. That one is right. So all of us are familiar with this movie 12 Angry Men. And if you, yeah, 12 Angry Men. So 12 Angry Men is a movie where there's a young man who is held in charge of killing his father, murdering his father. And so the trial goes on. And at the end of the trial, there are 12 jurors who are supposed to decide the fate of that person, right? So it's a hot afternoon and everybody's like, and the evidence looks very, very compelling against that person, against the youngster. So everybody's like saying, let's say guilty and get out with it. But guilty means death sentence for the person. So 11 of them are very clear and they give this saying guilty. And there's one person, juror 8, who says not guilty, not because he thinks the evidence is against it, but because he thinks there's not been enough discussion or deliberation done on it, and therefore he does not want to go ahead. Right. So, in our discussion, we are trying to find out who the juror 8 is in our organizations, right? And what happens to that person as well. So that's the just crux of what we are trying to do. So I typically ask for a show of hands. So raise your hand if you've seen anywhere in your career a problem that you and at least a few others, privately agreed was real, but nobody formally raised it. Quite a few of you were thinking it is a real problem, or something not in agreement with what was being given, but was not formally raised. Again, next one is looking back. Are there situations where in those situations, you generally couldn't say whose job it was to raise the hand, but nobody raised it, but it wasn't clear who actually should be doing it. In those situations, we really don't know who. And then the last question is a time when you thought it should be done, but you said, I'll do it not now, but it never happened. Right? Sometimes we wanted to, but we didn't do, and then it kind of, right? So a lot of these things are exactly what we're going to deal with in these panels, right? So the first question, this way we'll go, is I watched someone bell the cat and pay for it, which means that there's some in a meeting or in a discussion or in a decision making situation, someone went against the grain and actually called it out, and you saw that happening, and what happened to that person? How did it transpire, and was there a cost to it, and so on? Yes. So, and in the first round, we probably can introduce, because we didn't have a chance to introduce ourselves as well.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Kamlendra Srivastava. I'm the MD and CEO of CCRL, Countrywide Commodity Repository Limited. We are a CDSL group company dealing in the commodity resources. So, in fact, I have had a long career of around 30 years so far. And it so happens that I myself have been a kind of subject to this situation. And it so happens that in our daily way of functioning, we have got departmentalized specializations, in fact. And some very sacrosanct or say very not to be touched department is a legal one, in fact. And though it's, as Professor has just said clearly about the situation, it so happened that during my tenure within the Food Corporation of India, when I was regional manager for a particular region, there was a particular contractor which was notorious in that area, and so happened that all the contracts were going to him, and nobody was taking pains, in fact, or to go against the rules, because as per the law it was correct actually, and no contractor, the parallel contractor, was standing up against him. But somehow actually one particular contractor mustered the courage and came the situation that he was about to get the contract, but our legal division itself actually wrote against that smaller contractor actually. So I, against the recommendations of my other divisional heads, I as regional manager took the decision in fact actually to go by the rules actually award the contractor to the smaller contract to the smaller contractor, and again then though the smaller contractor again in fact awed by the size of the larger one, he was not mustering courage to stand up actually. But then we had to somehow prevail upon him and award him the contract actually. It went the contract went to the court actually, and the larger contractor went to the court actually, and it so happened the case was lingered on. Ultimately, the truth prevailed, and the smaller contractor got the contract. So it so happens actually that in the departmentalized specializations, we don't have we grow in the seniority in the positions in the organization. We have to have somehow take a stand. In fact, a journalist, in fact, we have to take decisions actually which may not be liking to the departmental specializations. So that is the situation where I see actually we have to build the cat time and again actually in these situations. So that's my experience that I wanted to share with you. Thank you.
Avinash is a newly minted author.
It's a quick introduction. My name is Avinash Kaul, and I've spent a lifetime around 30 odd years in media. 4 years as the CEO of Times Television, and the last 12 years as the CEO of Network 18, broadcast and publishing. And I just hung up my boots on 31st of March, and I'm working on my biography, which is scheduled to launch on the 3rd of July, The Next Mountain. And so probably in the right space and the vantage point from where I speak from. And I also happen to be lucky enough to be among the youngest CEOs in media at the age of 35, and probably longest serving, 16 years, before I decided to chuck myself out rather than being thrown out. But to the point that you raised, I think I've seen it far more than, one-off. I think it's every day. And perhaps if anything that has propelled my growth in my career, the fact that I made a CEO in 12 years has only because I would do nothing else but belt the cat every time. And I have not dealt with the negative consequences of it ever. Because I think, in my opinion, it's only the intent that matters. If your intent is to create trouble and hence, do something, then that's going to land you in trouble. But if you know that what you're doing is right, and then you go for it, then there is no reason why you shouldn't be able to belt the cat, because organizational structures exist for people to actually come out and say. But most people fear when they see an experience of somebody who entered the room, said something, and then bore the consequences. But if everybody keeps thinking that it's happened to them, the myth kind of perpetuates that you are not allowed to say something here. But what happens is the art of diplomacy, or the art of learning what they don't teach you in B schools, is the fact that you have to hear a no before you assume that it's a no. So the art of saying it nicely so that people don't think that you are trying to actually become a trouble creator, but you are genuinely coming from a position that you want to do something differently and you are challenging the status quo. So if you say it in a nice and a fashion, of course you're going to ruffle feathers. Like if I became a CEO at 35, I had people well in my 50s reporting into me, and everybody would get offended that suddenly there's a new idea, oh, you don't know anything about this piece. I say, fair enough, I don't know. But if we don't do it, we won't anyway know. That if you come up and say things, but you can't talk nonsense. I mean, you need to take sense. First, you need to have the entire background behind you, and then you make it a point. And then when you give it, then you give the empowerment to that guy that now go around with it. Right? But I have seen many organizations where it is taken in a very negative connotation that, oh, now you've dared to say this, now you suffer the consequences, your increments won't happen for a few years, you will be put in a job which really doesn't do justice to your role. But I think it's more up to the CXOs. If they lead the way themselves, if they disrupt things themselves, I think the organization stands to benefit a lot more, because that means that, there is no negative connotations or consequences of opening up and saying what you want to say. And specifically in media, I mean, everybody is surrounded by journalists, and journalists aren't supposed to be forever quiet. If they don't like something, they will be vocal about it. So it's better that you start demolishing things yourselves rather than waiting for somebody else to tell you those things. So I've had a great experience with that.
Media is one, and financial services is another, and auditing and assurance is even more as traditional as it can come. So,
Yes, I can definitely share, and I have an interesting point of view. But before that, good evening to everyone. My name is Karthik Venkatakrishnan. I am a chartered accountant and also a chartered alternative investment analyst. I have about 2 decades of experience in the alternative investment space, working primarily on hedge funds, private equity, venture capital, and outsourced services. I am at Eisner Amper. I'm the managing director of Eisner Amper, India. I've been 13 years with the firm. To your point, I think I would want to say, and in this case, I was the cat that needed to be bailed. So the story is about that I was the person who was really being out of line. And this is in my articleship period. And just to give you context, I had come to Mumbai from Calcutta to pursue my CA and my BCom, and I was pursuing both simultaneously. And the first year of college, when I was doing my foundation, I enjoyed life to the fullest in my college life. So I wanted to continue on that theme in my second year, but my articleship had started, which means I needed to be in the office of my clients. But I didn't want to give up the life of the college life that I had, and I found it, it was my first year, it was my second year, I enjoyed the first year, I wanted to continue in the same vein. But what I was trying to do is juggle multiple balls and multiple roles, which I was not good at and I frankly couldn't. So I was going to the college, I was going into the office around 11 as a first year article clerk, and anybody who's in the CA profession will tell you, when you're a first year article clerk, you got to show up the first and you got to be the last leaving the office. And I was coming in at 11 every day because I wanted to go to college in the morning. I came to office at 11 and I had classes in the evening, which meant that I would leave the office around 5 o'clock. So I was only working from 11 to 5. And I would say my seniors in the audit, tried to sound me off and say, hey, this is not going to work, you got to do better and all of that. And I felt it was, it was more of a suggestion rather than they were really telling me what to do. And so 2 months passed. I think they gave me enough hints, they gave me enough clues, but probably reached a point where I was not taking those, at least those cues to heart. And my partner came around and, he does a quarterly visit. We had a team of 8 people there, and he went around and he asked me, how are you doing? I said, I'm doing great. And he said, I'm sure you must be doing great because hardly working. You come in, you're coming into the office at 11, leaving at 5, like you have a charmed life. And he, to the point, he got stuck into me for the next 10 minutes. And though the mode of delivery probably could have been a little bit more eloquent, but he was brutal. He was direct, and he basically gave me an ultimatum. At the end of the day, he said, decide what you want to do. If you want to continue with this firm, you got to come in, you got to show more commitment. If not, you have a week to decide. You want to ship out of the firm, walk out of the firm. It's up to you. But I'm not going to give you more than a week to decide. Of course, and it was necessary. I think I was taking it, I was trying to have the best of everything. Like have your cake and eat it too, which I knew was not going to happen. So that was a life lesson. Initial reaction was out of ego and hurt. So, it's like, hey, I will quit this. nobody can talk to me like this. I'll find some other place. But luckily I had some wiser people around me who said, why don't you take a week's time and then decide, rather than deciding on the very next day based on your emotion and ego. So I said there was some merit in what he said, and I said, what, I'm going to try to prove I can do better. So I stuck on, I changed my ways, and the same partner, the third year, nominated me for being the best article clerk, and we had about 150 article clerks in our firm, so it was no small feat. And later in life is when you, with wisdom, I think with age is when you reflect upon it and realize that what he did was not only very crucial for the firm and the engagement, but personally for me, I think he did the best thing that he could do for me is straighten me out or bell the cat with me and make sure that I fall in line, because that helped me put things in perspective, not only at that point in time, but I think going forward as well. So to the point, I think I would say is that what could have been slightly different, what he could have done better is probably not, given me a lashing in front of 8 other colleagues. He could have done it a little bit more eloquently there, but that's okay. I think back in the day, I would take that with a pinch of salt. But I think it's important to call out things as they are. Yes, the way you do it is most important. It's not what you do, but how you do it is always matters. That's the only thing that I would say I would do differently from what he did. But that was a life lesson that I have learned, where I applied to myself and applied to others as well, in calling out some things that may be uncomfortable, but at the same time, if it needs to get done, you just got to find a way to get it done.